Well, I've really been looking forward to tonight in a lot of ways. One of the nice things about planning the programs, you can schedule people to talk on things you want to know about. And I have heard about reverse beacon network for years. And I think part of the reason I don't know too much about it is I'm not a CW operator, but I've become convinced this is an incredible tool for DXing. And so I looked around and I found an expert, and I'm so glad that we can learn from that tonight. So I want to introduce to you Bob Wilson, N6TV, TV Bob. He's a very active contester. I've heard him a number of times at Contest University in Dayton. He was part of the World Radiosport Team Championship in San Francisco in '96, in Slovenia in 2000, and in Moscow in 2010. He finished first in the 2013 and 2019 ARRL November CW Sweepstakes, and he was operating from W7RN. In 2017, excuse me, he was inducted into the to Contest Hall of Fame, which, you know, incredible honor. And he's was a software engineer with IBM for 36 years, and we really count it a joy, Bob, to have you with us. And so at this point, we'll turn it to you, and the stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Mel. I'm going to try to share this screen. Let's see if that works. You should see it full screen.
Yep, your screen is up.
And it is full screen.
Full screen.
So apologies for the advertising by ICOM here. This was quickly copied from a presentation I did give at Contest University a couple of years ago. I updated it just for tonight with the latest data I could find in most cases. So you'll see their logo on all the slides, but they are not paying me to do this. I assure you of that. So let's get going here. So the talk tonight is going to cover what is the CW Skimmer and the RTTY Skimmer. You don't have to be a CW operator to take advantage of the RBN. Now, what is it exactly? How does it work? And the main part of the talk is what can the reverse beacon network do for me or for you? And they're also going to try to answer, you know, how do you use it and what could you do to help the reverse beacon network? I do hear somebody who needs to mute. So, and a little bit about what's new for the reverse beacon network. Thank you. So I have to give, first of all, credit to the excellent software engineer, Alex Shovkoplias, VE3NEA. He was born in the Ukraine and immigrated to Canada and has been there since '98. That's what he used to look like, but programming is very hard work. This is a more recent photo of what he looks like. You can see that it takes a lot out of somebody to write this kind of very, very incredible software, and way beyond what I've learned how to do. He was honored, fortunately, by the Radio Amateurs of Canada for their Amateur of the Year award back in 2014. So what is CW Skimmer? Well, first of all, you need some pieces. The number one piece you need is you need a little bit of hardware. You need a PC and then a software-defined radio. And in this image here, this one on the left is one of the newest ones that can do multiband skimming, and that's called the RTTY. It's made in Slovenia, and that's their newest model. And this is the oldest one that I still use. It's the Perseus. This one just covers one band. This one can cover up to 16 and skim them all simultaneously. Next, you need an antenna that can cover a wide range of frequencies. And so usually that's a smaller antenna. So the spots that are heard by a skimmer near you, you're going to hear them with your real antenna probably better than the skimmer can, because we forced our skimmer nodes are forced to use smaller antennas so we can cover all the bands. I just found out tonight that this nice dipole here, you see part of it in the picture, is listed as not available on the DXE website, and K3LR was going to look into that for me. This is my backyard and the pixel loop I use for most of my spotting. So if you hear N6TV spot something, chances are, and where you guys are, you'll probably be able to hear it. So what is CW Skimmer and what is the Skimmer server? They're two different programs. He started with this one on the left, which is CW Skimmer, and then he decided to get rid of all the graphics and do more than one band at a time, and came out with this one that just sits as a little icon in the tray, and that's the Skimmer server. So starting with CW Skimmer, it's designed to work natively with many software-defined radios. It can decode multiple signals in real time. You can see the call signs listed on the left here as it's decoding the dots and dashes. It can monitor an entire CW band. This is when you're using an SDR. Has this waterfall display which goes sideways as a band scope. It uses the master call sign file that we use while contesting, so it can distinguish kind of garbage call signs from known good call signs. And it supports a Telnet server that emulates a DX cluster. Skimmer server has one dialog that comes up, no graphics, where you can select the bands and stuff. It only natively supported one SDR, which is no longer made, the Quicksilver QS1R. But fortunately, others have figured out how to use the latest SDRs, at least this red Pitaya, to do even more than you could ever do with the QS1R. It also decodes multiple signals, but it can monitor up to 16 bands at one time with a single SDR. The only one I know of is the red Pitaya that can do that. You can only select 8 bands at once in each instance of Skimmer server, but you can run 2 instances of Skimmer server against the red Pitaya, and it covers 16 bands that way. There's no waterfall display, there's no band scope, and there's no master checking, but it does a pretty good job of decoding call signs, and bad spots are filtered downstream in the cluster servers. And it also supports a Telnet server. Finally, the last one he came out with is the RTTY Skimmer server. You can see a picture of it here. There's a little green band shows the RTTY band that it's decoding. It's ignoring all the other signals. These little yellow dots down here are called decoder dots. Someone needs to mute, maybe W3AS, not sure who. It also only supported the QS1R SDR natively and will run on the red Pitaya, but it can do multiple RTTY signals in real time. There isn't much RTTY on the band these days, but during a RTTY contest, there's plenty of it. And so all those spots you see of RTTY signals, I hope you guys, some of you guys are into RTTY, are coming from this piece of software. It does, again, up to 16 bands, but it requires a heck of a lot more CPU power to decode high-speed RTTY at all these frequencies than CW. So you need a really high-end CPU, which is why there's fewer RTTY skimmers online than CW ones. It has this limited band scope here, 1 band at a time, no waterfall, but it does sort of show you where the signals are. And there's no master file, but it, again, supports a Telnet server. So what's a Telnet server? Well, it's just a port on your PC that spits out data when it decodes a signal. In this case, it's decoded this guy, YW4D. It also tells you the signal to noise ratio. It's a very accurate representation of the signal to noise ratio, and it calculates the speed that they're sending in words per minute. And it can figure out if a station is CQing or just calling. And generally, spots you see on your band map or on the reverse beacon network are only CQers. Not shown here, but it also can show RTTY spots the same way, but it it omits the speed, of course. It just says 45 BPS on every Boto spot for RTTY. So what is this thing? Well, why is it called the reverse beacon network? Well, it uses any CW or RTTY signal as the beacon, including your own. So then multiple skimmers around the world, we're going to record the signal strength and the CW speed. They're going to use a program called the aggregator, which collects all those spots locally and forwards it to a central server on the internet. And then the central server distributes those spots via web page and also public Telnet servers. And the main point is you don't need to have an SDR to use the reverse beacon network. So how are these spots going to get to your PC and your software, and how are you going to be able to see what's getting spotted? Well, obviously it starts with an antenna such as the DX engineering loop. And then that goes to, say, my SDR running a red Pitaya here. That's connected to my PC, and there's 2 pieces of software running on it. The Skimmer server is the one that talks to the red Pitaya and decodes the CW, and the aggregator is the one that takes those Telnet spots locally and forwards them to the reverse beacon network over the internet. And then the central server distributes all those spots to many retail, as we call them, DX clusters, and like a VE7CC node. And then your computer connects to that and gets the spots. Before I proceed any further, I do have to give thanks to some of the people who made this all possible, specifically Felipe, PY1NB, who started dxwatch.com and expanded it to support the reverse beacon network. He also wrote the first aggregator, and then W3OA enhanced that and really added quite a bit. F5VIH added a spot analysis tool I'll show you later. It runs on the web. And then N4ZR, who publishes a blog about the RBN, he's sort of the chief evangelist and tries to answer questions and help others. And there's a lot of folks you don't hear about who do make all the servers run and keep them going as much as possible, including archiving spots. So here's Felipe. Took this picture of him, I think, at Dayton a long time ago. And as I mentioned, he's the one who owns these websites. Dick, W3OA, who created the aggregator software, we couldn't distribute spots without it. I've never met Nick, but he's one who wrote the cool spot analysis tool. And there's our chief evangelist, Pete, and for ZR, well, another photo I took at Dayton. There is a reflector where we can talk about the skimmer technology, or if you're a operator of an RBN node or a skimmer that's on the RBN, it's that number 187 is probably low. There's more now. Anyone can join these groups. It's if you have any questions about how to set up your own skimmer or what skimmer is doing or why it's spotting you or something like that. So what can the RBN do for you? If you're a contester, it can improve your score. It puts all the spots in the band map for you, so you know where on the band every station whose CQing is. Of course, that's legal to use if you're single op assisted or multi-op. If you're single op unassisted, then you're not supposed to use any spotting network or even a local skimmer that isn't connected to the internet. And another thing it does is it spots you. So if you're a little pistol, in the old days, you'd CQ and nobody would spot you. These days, any signal, no matter how weak, if you call CQ and you're getting out at all, some skimmer somewhere is going to spot you and you'll be able to go look that up and say, hey, I'm getting out. Or I'm in my dummy load. No wonder I'm not getting out. So before a contest, you can check your front to back ratio and your signal strength. And, there's some techniques for that using the spots and the signal reports that are coming out of the RBN. You can figure out, where your antenna is getting out pretty quickly if your antenna's rotator calibration is wrong. And of course, you can compare signal strength impartially against your local competition. So what about improving my score? Well, you want to make sure the skimmers spot you. Like I was saying, you're a little pistol. You want to make sure when you call CQ that you get spotted, and the big multis with their second stations will come and find you. You also want to connect to the RBN with your favorite DX cluster and in CW and RTTY contests when it's allowed. You will find that the reverse beacon network is going to post a lot more spots than human DXers who are just interested in spotting the rare ones. That spreads out the pileups quite a bit. Every pileup I've jumped into, I can immediately tell the difference if a skimmer spotted or if a human spotted it, because way more people are just interested in the human spots. And so they get much bigger pileups than the ones that are just spotted by a skimmer. And the skimmer usually spots them first. As I mentioned, the reverse beacon network will quickly fill up your band map and your logging software. And it also can help you find clear spots to call CQ. If you look at your band map and it's full of call signs, but there's a big gap that nowhere in the world has spotted anybody on that frequency, chances are that's a good place to call CQ because it's probably open. Or there's a loud carrier on it, something like that. So what else can I do? How else can it help improve my score? Well, it's going to tell you when the bands are open. And for example, I was operating at K3LR we're a big multi, and you get at a big multi, you get on 15 meters when it's still dark in the morning, and you point your beam at Europe and you start calling CQ and you just try to open the band. So we were CQing away into the dark early in the morning, and all of a sudden we got a message on our PCs that we had been spotted in Slovenia. And we kept CQing and nobody called us until 25 minutes later. So we knew the band was opening. That doesn't always happen. That just happened once. Now the skimmers are more sensitive and there's more of them. So usually we start to work guys before the skimmers spot us because they have better antennas. But that was an interesting development a couple of years ago. So it's very important that you call CQ in a way that skimmer recognizes that you actually are CQing. And, you know, it's kind of a dumb robot. When it comes to coding CW, it's still not quite as good as a human. So what you can do to help it the most is send everything at the same consistent speed. You know, you can speed up and slow down parts of your exchange and your call signing and call CQ real fast, and then your call sign slow, and you think you're helping people copy you better, but it doesn't help the skimmer copy you better because it has to reset itself every time you change speed to figure out how to decode you. So I don't change speed when I'm CQing especially. And it's only looking for certain keywords to indicate that you're CQing, and it likes to see the same call sign decoded twice the same way before it's going to post a spot and be sure about that. So here's some examples of how it would recognize it. Sending my call twice, just sending CQ and test. I'm not sending DE or please copy or please answer or any other garbage would just confuse it. And, you know, don't rush everything together. If you let the computer do the sending or your keyer, memory keyer, so everything's spaced perfectly, and you'll have the best chance of getting spotted. Same applies to RTTY. You know, put a nice long CQ in there with your call a couple of times, and you will get spotted by the RTTY skimmers. So if you want to get spotted more than once by a skimmer, there's a filtering algorithm that an individual skimmer is only going to spot you once every 10 minutes. They don't want you spotting you every time you call CQ. But if you move frequency by a half a kilohertz or so, it's going to think, oh, he's moved frequency, I got to spot him again. So if you want to get spotted again by the same spotter because you're comparing antennas or something, you have to move a little bit. So what counts as a CQ? As I mentioned, CQ and test. You also had QRZ in there. Then Alex added these common things that you would send in field day or sweepstakes or the North American QSO party. Also the word up, when a DXpedition is just sending their call sign and up, but they're never calling CQ. Well, they'll get spotted as a CQer if they use that word up. So here's some examples. I hope we hear P5DX someday and get to work North Korea. I have it confirmed, but then there's some question about whether the guy I worked is actually legit or not. So we'll see if that one goes away. These are examples of how to CQ properly, as I call it. If you have a real short special event call sign, you always want to send it 2 or 3 times because chances are the skimmer is going to really have to listen to it carefully to decide, okay, that's a real call sign, not just a partial. So what happens though is everybody who's using these skimmers are very accurately calibrated. We work very hard to make sure that the skimmer's spotted frequencies are accurate. And of course, you probably calibrate your receiver or your transceiver. So everybody calls on exactly the same frequency. And if anybody's been on the other end of a pileup like N7QT, you know how hard it is to pick a call sign out if everybody's on exactly the same frequency. Well, what real DXers learn really quick is to use their XIT, just crank it up or down 100 hertz, 200 hertz, and assuming the guy's not working split. And chances are you're going to really distinguish yourself in the ears of the DXpedition operator, and you'll get through better. So in a contest especially, there's features in the software that'll automatically randomize where they kind of call, not on the exact frequency of the skimmer, which is only accurate to 100 hertz. That's another trick. I tend to CQ on .15 or .25 or something. So half the skimmers spot me on .3 and the other half on .2, and that kind of spreads the pile up a little bit. So how can I use a reverse beacon network to check antennas? Well, it's not too hard. You just call CQ on CW or RTTY, and then just within a few minutes, you'll be spotted on the reverse beacon website. And then you can QSY a little bit, turn to beam again, or try a different antenna, and then repeat the CQ, and you should get 2 different signal reports. I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times. That's one way to do it. If you've been CQing for a whole contest, you can use the spots analysis tool on the website. That unfortunately only gets updated once a day at 0 Zulu, but it collects all the spots of everybody on CW and RTTY anyway, for an entire 24-hour period. And so actually longer. So you can go back and see how your signal compared to your competition. And I'll show you an example of that later. And then everything is saved in files. So chances are, if you ever called CQ on RTTY or CW since 2009, your call sign is in one of these files with a timestamp showing exactly when you did it. So how do we get to the RBN? Again, you have to be a single opposite or a multi to use it. There's a couple of ways to do it. There's some DX clusters that combine the reverse beacon network spots with the human spots and use a older cluster software called AR cluster or ARC. Then some of them support a new flag that helps eliminate busted spots because, skimmers are very accurate, but they will bust a call sign. And so they eliminate that by making sure 2 or more skimmers voted and agreed on what the call sign was. And then only those spots get through. So that's a nice thing to eliminate uniques and busted spots. And the CC cluster software by VE7CC, I assume you guys are using that. It does a very good job of removing busted spots or uniques by insisting that the same call be spotted twice before it broadcasts out the spot. So there's an old way of filtering the spots, which is you type in commands like this. In this case, I don't want to see spots from the entire world. I just want to see spots from these zones, which are on the West Coast, zone 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 31. You could argue zone 4 isn't on the West Coast, but close enough. And I didn't want anybody spots by WZ7I because he's actually in Pennsylvania. But I do want to see every spot of my own call sign. So that was the command you would enter. And this reference down here, and you'll get I'll be happy to provide a copy of these PowerPoints to Mel to put on your website if you like. Then the AR cluster software has a different syntax than DX Spider for filtering, but it's the same idea. I want to see spots of my call sign or unique greater than 1, which means it's not unique. And the spotter state is California, Nevada, or Utah. It's just an example. I tried to use this website that references the AR cluster commands today, and it seems to either be down permanently or down temporarily. AR cluster, I think the author has passed away, and so there's not really much support for it anymore. But CC User is the way to go. It's a very handy program. It is a complex UI, but once you check all the filter boxes, it sends a command to the cluster, and then you're kind of done with it. So here's where you can download the CC User software. And it's a full-featured graphical user interface. I'll show you a screenshot. And it also, as I mentioned, CC cluster nodes, unlike some of the others, automatically reject any busted spots.
Hello, Bob.
Go ahead. I heard a hello, Bob.
No, I don't have it yet. It's supposed to be in tomorrow.
Oh, he's talking to another Bob. I think that's AG7IG. I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought I had a breaker there. All right. If there are any questions at this point, I guess I could pause, and you can unmute yourself and ask. Maybe I'll just keep going. All right. So,
Bob?
Go ahead.
This is Rob, N7QT.
I know that call sign.
I had, thanks for all that stuff. I want to make a plug about all your gear that I bought from you. It works great. Hey, I had a question on that pixel loop that you have.
Yes,
how do you decide what direction? Because isn't it like a figure-8 pattern?
It's not as sharp a loop as a typical magnetic loop that you'd build for 160 or 80 or something like that. It's I've tried its null, and it's not that deep. So okay. I kind of pointed at my loudest noise source to sort of null that out, which fortunately in my direction is kind of south. So due north and due south is kind of noisy. Or I pointed at my shack where all the computer noises are. So I'm trying to just null out the local noise that way. So it's pretty omnidirectional other than that.
Okay, because I have one, and you've given me a great idea. It's in the garage or in the barn, and I'm thinking I might pull it out and set this up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's not going to be as sensitive as your big tower and antennas, but it does copy quite a few bands. I think it's more sensitive on the low bands than the high bands, but it does copy. And it's it's not as noisy as like an active vertical, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for that good question. So as I was mentioning, CC cluster nodes, they by V7CC, they automatically reject the unique spots and eliminate dupes. So that's a good thing. And there's a tutorial at this link that I recommend. I call it a new tutorial, but it's actually still accurate on how to use CC user, which hasn't changed that much. So
Bob,
here's
we will get you to send us the PowerPoint because I think these links are fantastic.
Yeah, it'll be in PDF form, but the links will still work. And if they don't, let me know and I'll fix it. Okay, so here's a little hard to read, but these are the typical CC cluster dialog. All the things you see in green are sort of past spots with those characteristics. In this case, I wanted spots that are being sent from WK and VE and North America as the DX origination site. So that is, I want to see spots that are coming from those places. The spotter is in those countries. And then I also further filtered it down below where I picked if the spotter is in any state in W7 land, then I want to see it. That was just an example. And the way it works is once you're done checking all the boxes of where you want to see the spots and what spots you want to see, and you can even ask for spots for individual call signs if you're only looking for a particular de-expedition. And then there's a button at the bottom right down here that says tell cluster. So what that means is send all those spots to the cluster and set up all the filters and issue all those funky commands so that the cluster will filter out my connection and only show me spots according to that filter. Then you can close the dialog and just connect your software to it regularly. So there's some spots, again, that combine the RBN with spots with the legacy human spots. Obviously, the VE7CC main cluster node, there's a few other shadows of that you can connect to. W9PA has a very good high-speed spotting system connected straight to the RBN. And he has this extension you can add, one of the last pieces of software that went into AR cluster. You can type in this command, set DX extension skimmer quality, and it puts little flags next to the spots that indicate, this one's, a brand new one, this one probably busted, this one known busted, things like that. And there's a whole list of Telnet servers and ports that you can connect to if one goes down. I noticed the VE7CC node went down about 45 minutes before the end of the WPXCW contest last Sunday. Never did find out what happened, but tried to connect to some of the other ones, and all the CC cluster nodes were down, but other ones were still working, so you could reconnect. There's also these real-time propagation maps. Again, Felipe's other website, dxmaps.com. There's a button I'll show you where you click the low frequency, high frequency bands because it's mainly defaulting for UHF and VHF DXers, but it does the rest. And you can leave the page open on a dedicated window in your PC, and it should refresh itself on the web browser. So here's an example of DX maps. Here's the button that I was talking about that you click because it doesn't come up with that. It comes up with VHF and up selected in boldface there. So you click that button, and then you click in all bands or a particular band you're interested in monitoring. And then under select options, I don't show it all, but there's a pull down list of various things. In this example, I went ahead and said, I just want to see, human spots. I don't want to see any skimmer spots, just the human spots. So you can see it drew lines on where all the humans had spotted various people. Although it says W3LPL spotted somebody, he kind of mixes in some things on his spotting node that make it look like a human spotted it. But now I'm going to show you what it looks like the same exact time or nearly so, where I turned on the RBN spots. Look at the difference. Go back and forth here. That's human spotters. That's automated spotters. As you can see, they're giving you a lot more data. The green are 20 meters. The purple is 15 meters. Hawaii was coming in on 15 meters this afternoon. And it draws the gray line and shows you, and it's updated dynamically. dxmaps.com, very cool website that feeds a lot of data in. You can say, I want to see PSK reporter data for FT8. You can say, I want to see just CW skimmer spots and filter by band and continent and all kinds of good stuff. There's even this box up at the right here, a little obscure. You can type your call sign in there or any call sign and then hit this little funnel that means filter it. And then it updates and just shows you spots from where that call sign is being heard. So I do have a talk to recommend. It was very recent. It was given by Jose CT1BOH. He uses FT8 spots to analyze propagation in real time using the PSK Reporter website. This is the direct YouTube link that jumps right to hit the middle of his talk or the beginning of his talk. And I learned a lot about propagation by or how he's using the internet to get in real time what the real world propagation is, as opposed to theoretical propagation. And he uses this pskreporter.info, which is a similar map that I don't have a slide for, that shows where all the FT8 signals are being heard. So that'll tell you if there's no opening on FT8, there's going to be no opening on CW. And there's of course way more activity, except for contest weekends, on FT8 than any other mode these days. Here's how you use the website. There's many things you can do on the website. You can in real time see spots of your own CQs. You can plot your spots on a map. You can do analysis, 24 hours after a contest and compare how your signal was to Europe compared to your competition. Yeah, that's what the spot analysis tool can do by plotting that graphically. And there's even an archive of raw data files of every single spot that they've collected. They don't collect FT8 spots, but they do collect other modes, CW and RTTY. And there's millions of spots archived, as I mentioned, going all the way back to 2009. So you start at the main website, reversebeacon.net. You click on the little main link up there. And then there's a link that says search spot by call sign. And that's where you can go ahead and search. You can either search by spotter, like you can say, what's the skimmer near me hearing? Or you can search for any call sign you want to see if it's being spotted. So here I just put in my own call sign as DX, not as the skimmer. The DE would be my skimmer node and what's it's hearing. And after I called CQ on 10 meters, boy, this was a while ago, I got spotted in Pennsylvania and on the East Coast and even in Slovenia. Boy, it must have been a long time ago. It's been a long time since we heard Slovenia on 10 meters, or they heard me. But there's a new beta website that I highly recommend because it runs faster and it's direct, and actually the map works on it. There used to be a map on the old one, but it stopped working because Google Maps changed the rules. So for example, in this example on the next page, I went ahead and entered the call AH6A in Hawaii in the search box. And here it came up with this beautiful plot of all the skimmer nodes that are hearing AH6AA on 20 meters. And you can see it was heard in the West Coast. It was heard by others. If you scroll down, the whole list would be there. I limited the list to 40 skimmers. So that's where he was getting out this afternoon at 0 Zulu today. Yeah, that was today. So as you can see, there's a little drop-down box over on the right where you can say how limit the spots to the last hour, the last 24, maximum number of rows, and so on. And you can just leave this page up once you set the filter, and any new spots for him will pop up immediately. And then there's also, going back to the original reversebeacon.net website, there's the spot analysis tool. You click DX spots and then spots analysis tool, and it pops up this dialog where you have to put in a date, because every set of spots is archived by Zulu date. So this was way back, gosh, it was 10 years ago now, where I was in the California QSO party, and I wanted to see how I was getting out compared to my crosstown rival K6XX. So I put in the date of the first day of the California QSO party, and as soon as you click a date, then it lists down here all the nodes that were active that day and how many spots they collect. So I'll pick one with a lot of spots, like K3MM. It was on the East Coast. And then at the bottom of the dialog, there's a place where you can click in here, enter a call sign, and click add. So I added my 2 call signs. And just to review what I checked there. And the winner is K6XX. Look at that. He was getting out on 10 meters way better than I was. This is time along the axis, and this is signal to noise ratio up here at this one node. You can't compare signal to noise ratios between nodes, but at a single node like K3M's skimmer, it's fair to compare. So we were all getting out. I'm the blue, he's the yellow, but he was a lot louder than me on 10 meters. And on 15 meters, though, we're about even. So what's going on there? Well, it turned out I had an interaction problem in my antenna system, which has since been corrected. So hopefully I'm going to be as loud as K6XX the next time. So that was a very eye-opening thing. I knew there was a my SWR was too high in 10 meters, but I didn't realize how badly I was getting out until I did that. So finally, you can download just these raw zip files that have their comma separated values. That's something you can easily filter and import into other programs like Excel, or I write Python programs, or even old awk scripts to summarize them. This is kind of what they look like, just a few lines of them. The first line is a header, typical comma separated value file. And the last two columns are in red because they're new. They show the mode and this speed of the sender in CW. So just the same data you would see, but in a format you can import. These files are huge, though, a little too big to import into Excel. I do have a free batch file that will cut it down to just the call signs you're interested in. I haven't updated this today, but look how many spots were made during the CQ Worldwide contest, going all the way back to 2018. You can see there was a steady increase. That's mainly because more skimmers were being added, not necessarily because there were more activity. Although in 2016, I think there was a solar storm and the spot counts were definitely down. ARRL CW has less activity than worldwide, of course, but look at the rate that stations are being spotted. 86,000 spots per hour, or 33 spots per second, and it's even higher than that these days. Just out of curiosity, once I had all this raw data, I was saying, well, what's the average CW speed in all those spots? And sure enough, in CQ Worldwide, it comes out to about 30, 31 words a minute, average CW speed of somebody who's CQing. Of course, if they're CQing if they get spotted many times, there's going to be dupes in there. And then on ARRL, curiously enough, they send a little bit slower. I guess they figure we can't copy code as fast as the Europeans. RTTY Skimmer, during a RTTY contest, I picked the worldwide RTTY 48-hour contest. That too was trending up in terms of RTTY spots, but as I mentioned earlier, you need a pretty powerful CPU to decode RTTY on 6 bands at once. So although they're getting cheaper now than they used to be. And in the January RTTY roundup, which of course is only a 30-hour contest, there are plenty of spots on RTTY as well. So what can you do to help the RBN? How can you help the RBN? You can set up your own SDR, and even the cheap dongles will work, although I recommend a better one to avoid images and false spots on the wrong frequencies. This skimmer software itself costs a little bit, but you can get a lifetime license for, I think, all your PCs. And then you can choose to feed those spots to the aggregator, and the aggregator feeds them to the reverse beacon network, or you can just run it locally and keep it all to yourself. But we do need more skimmers in Asia, Africa, and South America. The YASME group funded an operation to add more skimmers in these poorly represented areas, and they're slowly coming online. Again, you can help the DX station and the pilot by calling off frequency instead of right on frequency, especially on CW. So what's new lately? Well, this isn't that new news, but the NCDXF and other HF beacons, I assume you guys are familiar with that. You know, the NCDX has a worldwide beacon, NCDXF has a worldwide beacon system which transmits up to 100 watts on a vertical around the world. You can go to ncdxf.org to read more about it. And it's on 20 through 10, including the work bands. And they only send the call sign once and then a series of dashes at different power levels. So it's tough for the skimmers to always spot them. But if they get loud, they can be spotted. And there are techniques to help the skimmer spot it, even if the call is sent once and they're not CQing. As I mentioned, this relatively new Red Pataya, this is their STEM lab model. Actually, I think it's called the SDR lab right now. They keep naming different things. There's the link to it. It costs about $500 or $600, but it's the only SDR on the market that can do 16 bands simultaneously in one little box. It's pretty amazing. And as I said that already, used to be just 8. And the QS1R had a max of 7. Aggregator version 6.3 is there, and he added FT8 skimming to feed FT8 spots more rapidly to the RBN than was possible before. So that's an improvement. So that's really the conclusion of the talk. There's a lot of links here to the various things I've mentioned, the Perseus SDR, the Red Battaya, the CW Skimmer software if you want to download it. And if you just want to play with CW Skimmer as a simple code reader, you don't need an SDR. It can connect to the sound card output of your radio and just listen to it as the 3 kilohertz audio passband, and it will decode the skimmer's that it's hearing. It'll decode the CW that it's hearing in the passband, and might be useful to you. There's another page of info with the hardware to the antennas, and N4ZR's PDF file that has introduction to it if you want to read more about it at your own pace. And of course, at my qrz.com page, there's some more info. If you this talk or an earlier version of this talk is linked there, and I will send a PDF of this talk to mail to put on your website. So I am open to any and all questions, or you want me to go back to a particular slide and talk some more, be happy to do it. Go for it, guys.
Okay, the floor is open. If you have questions, now's the time. Go for it.
Hey, Bob, this is Rob N7QT again. Another question for you concerning the Red Battaya. You said it can decode, was it 8 bands at the same time?
16 bands now.
16
bands. The original
Okay.
was 8.
All right. So you can decode 16 bands. Then from a PC perspective, what can I decode on the 16 bands? Meaning, can I do RTTY, CW, FT8 all at the same time? Or am I having to pick one or the other? Or
Good question. If you have a really high-end CPU, we're talking like a Xeon processor here.
okay,
That's enough power to decode all those modes simultaneously with one SDR.
okay,
That it can be done. If you have a slower CPU like I have in the shack, I can decode 16 bands of CW, 6 bands of RTTY. Maybe I just do 6 actually, and that kind of pushes me to the limit. As far as FT8 decoding, I have actually an older Red Battaya that I started with, and it has a built-in FT8 decoder. So when you see an FT8 decoder decode from my station or my node, that's actually being done on the Red Battaya itself. So they ported the decoding software onto that. So it runs standalone. I'm not running WSJTX or JT Alert or any of those things on the PC. There are other nodes that have distributed the same skimmer data from the SDR to a program called CWSL SSB Wave, or now it's got a new name, DigiWave or something. Anyway, it now enables the software to tune in on a particular slice, where the FT8 signals are, the FT4 signals, and decode them, and at the same time that it's decoding CW and other parts of the slice. So it's pretty amazing technology what an SDR can do when you let some programmers do their thing.
yeah, I can see combining my own decoder of what I can hear here with, say, something like the JT Alert that looks at my database and then alerts me. Basically, it tells me if I can decode or I can hear the particular DX station that I actually need. That would be, kind of the ideal combination.
Well, yeah, if you do need to scan multiple bands. Now, lots of folks, well, that's right. You only have maybe one transceiver in the shack, so you can't listen to maybe more than 1 or 2 bands at once,
Right.
using the audio passband of that radio. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One of the things that I thought that this could be helpful for, often if you're in a contest or you're looking for a de-expedition, to know, it seems like that this can pick up signals almost before the band is open to the public, and could give you an idea when to change band. Like, when would be a good time to move from 20 meters to 15 meters, or from 15 to 10 meters, or something like that. It seems like that this gives you an edge on knowing when that time is, as opposed to just traditional spotting.
Well, it certainly can go through historical data and tell you when the band starts to open up historically. The FT8 data is more voluminous and probably a little better for that. What I find more useful to figure out if a band is open at my QTH or is just starting to open is to look at the waterfall display of the P3, or if you have a K3 or an SDR's waterfall display will show you lines and little blips of all the signals getting louder and louder, and you see a whole band at once with your eyes. And you know that applies to phone and CW. There's no skimmer on phone. That's a challenging problem. I asked Alex if he'd ever try to tackle it, and he kind of said, "I think that's going to be too hard." So all the spots for phone remain as human ones. Although in my mind, how hard can it be to train Alexa to decode phonetics, you know, and turn them into spots on the web? Somebody's got to do that. But using the waterfall, I think, is the best way to determine if the band is starting to open and how open it is, because you can turn your beam and see, you know, oh, all the signals in Asia are starting to come up and all the signals in the W's are starting to fade, you know. So I like the waterfall for that. The skimmer does give you historical data, though, about when the band opened up that might be useful.
I think the other thing, we often can use FT8 to test our antennas, but I think this is a great tool to really find out where your antenna is being heard and where it's not.
Where you're being heard loud enough for a human to work you instead of a computer to work you. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, other questions?
Did anybody in the club call CQ today on CW or RTTY? We can go look. I can go share my browser and we can look them up on the reverse beacon, see where they were heard. You want to demo that? Anybody?
Anybody work CW today?
How about in the WPX CW contest last weekend? Was anybody on in the club?
Yeah, K7GS.
Golf Sierra?
Golf Sierra.
Okay. Is he online today?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Okay, I have to stop sharing this. Well, I'll ask any other reverse beacon questions about my slides before I go do the quick demo there.
I think if we're getting the a PDF of it, that's going to give me everything I missed.
Okay.
And Bob, can you look up another entry would be Kilo Zulu 1 Whiskey. I was part of that team.
Where were they located?
Here in Redmond, Washington.
Oh, that's not fair. Signing a one-land call in zone 3. Okay, let's go to get that web page up, then I'll share it. Stand by. So beta. Okay. So let's see if I can make it big enough for you guys to see. All right, let's try to share this. So you should be seeing my web browser.
Yep, it's up and we can see it.
On the beta website. So that call was?
K7GS.
Oh, I thought it was a 1. Not your call.
Oh, the one for Rob.
Yeah.
Kilo Zulu 1 Whiskey.
Kilo Zulu 1 Whiskey. Now, you see over here, it's a little hard to read probably, but it says max age 1 hour. I can go back 7 days. I think that'll cover the contest. And I'll say, let's see, 100 rows, I guess, is the max I can pick. There we go. So these spots were all at the very end of the last couple hours of the contest. We going all the way back to 22 Zulu. So literally the last 2 hours of the contest. And you can click these little boxes here to just filter it. So most of these spots seem to be on 15 meters. Yeah. I can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel here.
Wow.
And then if you hover carefully over the little red dot, it tells you, oh, Bravo Golf 8 deep in China spotted you on
15 meters.
15 meters or 20 meters, probably 20. It's a little hard to tell the color. So if I just say 20 meters, and then I think I have to, oh, that's interesting. Because it's doing it's showing 100 spots on 20 meters. So it's going back farther in time. So you can see, wow, we were getting to Europe. You were getting to Europe and Japan and China, at least going all the way back to 21:58 Zulu. So the last 2 hours of the contest. Very nice. Now let's compare how I was getting out compared to you guys. I was signing KR70. And there we go.
Wow.
Looks about the same. Well, I guess I was really running toward Asia. You see, this is a totally different time. This was at 1 a.m. local time on Sunday. Was the last time I started CQing on 20 because I was in the classic category, which is 24 hours max out of the 48. So I ran out of operating time. So this is at a totally different time period where I quit while I was getting out everywhere. Probably, at least I guess I left 20 and went to 40 at around that time. Let's see what that happens. So anyway, this tool is really cool. If you ever call CQ and want to see where you're getting out, just go to beta.reversebeacon.net and put your call sign in this box on the right, and that'll show you. So here's where I went to 40, and I quit that at 12 Zulu. So I was getting into Asia and China and so on. That's where I was getting spotted during the WPX contest, thanks to the borrowed call sign KR70, friend of mine. Okay, anyone else want to see their call sign on a map? I thought there was one other.
Yeah, I thought you wanted Kilo Zulu Golf Sierra.
Kilo
No?
Zulu, Kilo 7 Golf Sierra?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, were you on? I got to do
Yes.
all bands now. Yeah, you were on, and you were, it shows you on 40 and 20. You were getting out to Europe pretty well over the pole, and a little bit to Japan, not much. At least at 20 Zulu, the band wasn't quite open yet. So 4 days ago, you were definitely heard on the air. And I just realized, and I hope I don't embarrass you here, that there is another website that I should have put into my talk, and I have a shortcut for it, K7GS. And this one summarizes all of your activity for the last year and more. These little dots, you see this calendar at the top here? And these little green dots represent, when that call sign K7GS was active and how active you were on the air. And so you can see it's contest weekends like May. Good for you. And a little bit in the middle of the week, but mostly weekends. Poor guy still has to work probably. And it spreads it out mostly 20 meters. This is a very cool site here. It's collecting all the RBN data, so CW and RTTY spots. I don't think it includes FT spots, but I'd have to read the fine print down here. So that's pretty cool. And you're way more active on the air than me. I only get on for contests. Let's pick up my call sign. And I haven't been all that active in the middle of the week because I don't want to turn off my skimmer node. I want to keep it going. So I turn it off for contest weekends when I'm on. But last year I was more active than most because I was stuck at home with COVID, the quarantine like everybody else. Didn't catch it. Didn't catch it, thankfully. But one of my friends did, WC6H, right before the WPX contest. He had to cancel the whole event, but he's okay now. All right. Anything else you guys want to see?
That website that you just were on.
Yeah, I forgot to put. Let me go back. Forgot to tell you what it was because it's not in my slides. It's rbn.telegraphy.delta echo for Germany. And then I just entered, let's see, if I leave off the activity / and a call sign and just go to the main site. I don't know how to use this main site. CW Club RBN Spotter. Wow, you can actually say, show me all the members in my club. Wow, this guy's done incredible work. I haven't even played with that part of it. But I would add just the word activity at the end and see what happens. Yeah, then there's no call sign and there's a search box down here. Search for any call. I'm going to put in K7GS. Or let me put in Mel's call, N7GCO. See how active he is on the air. Not too much, at least on CW.
I'm not a CW operator, so I'm surprised it even showed up.
Well, I think you must have been on straight key night or something because you showed up here in January. 4 points on Saturday, January 2nd, at least local or Zulu time. So it must have been straight key night or something. You got on CW.
Must have been.
Or the skimmer busted your call. One of those. Okay. So again, it's rbn.telegraphy.delta/activity. That's
It's
good.
a great site.
Yeah, I really have to include that in this talk. All right.
Well, thank you, Bob. We really appreciate it. And this was fabulous. Loved it. And
Thank you very much.
I think I've learned some ways I can step my game up here. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks very
Okay.
much for your hospitality.
We
Thank
loved
you,
having
Bob.
you.
7-3.
73. See you, Rob.